You got that right.
So, welcome everyone to the User's Guide to the Fourth and Fifth Dimensions. I am Rebecca Roseberry, and I'm interviewing Chris Gordon, but we're also channeling, right? So, like, I don't know how you want to word that, Chris.
So, for as long as I can remember, I have talked to this collective consciousness. Didn't always understand it, but my mother, my father, and my grandfather got it, understood it, and they kind of helped guide me secretively, because of the fact that back then, if you heard voices, they put you away. There wasn't an understanding back then. Nothing malice, just no understanding. And but I call them the masters. That's my chosen name for them. They don't actually care if they have a name or not. So I channel them. So I am always either looking to my right or to my left, because I think we said this one other time. The masters are always on my right. Mm-hmm. And my spirit guides, my ancestors, angels, etc., are always on my left. So I do a lot of this back and forth. And I know that can be distracting sometimes. Sometimes I just close my eyes because of that. It's easier for me to hear and listen. So it's the masters. But if you have a name that makes you feel better than master, please, by all means, you can refer to them that way. They do not care. They're the name, as far as they are concerned, doesn't matter. It's the fact that we're listening.
Yeah. Well, that's so lovely. The fact that we're listening.
Yes.
Amen. That's it. Are we listening? So, so is this, I'm sure, I just clarifying for people, when I read the books of theta healing, Viana Steibel talks about the sixth plane of existence. Is that where you're channeling? Is that the sixth, or maybe the fifth?
It's a little higher than that.
Okay.
Because there are planes of existence, and then there are divine dimensions.
Oh.
And I love theta. Theta is one of my favorite places to be. Mm-hmm. I place my students in theta, sometimes my clients, when we're having our discussion, because it is that place of total understanding.
Yeah.
So these masters are source. Mm. So, but it's a collective consciousness. But for people that are Christian, that believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, you can see them as the collective. Yeah. Every religion has a source. So whatever that source is for you, it's not about me changing your belief system. I have devout Christians that totally understand the concept of the realm that I'm in. So it is for everyone. And so however you need to put your words, if I use a word sometime that you get the concept, but the particular word I'm using simply isn't resonating with you, please choose a word that's closer to what your belief system is. Never would I try to change anyone's belief system, because when the day is over and all is said and done, we are all speaking to the same energetic creator. Right. Whether some people say Om, and some people say God, and some people say Muhammad, but when it's all said and done, mm-hmm. their answer at the end of the day is, we are the same person. We are the same energy. We are the same collective. And so Esther Hicks has Abraham. Mike Dooley has what he calls, it stands for something, but Tut. And so when we are talking now, Lee Carroll's Cryon, and Cryon is a message that actually comes from a galactic place. Mm-hmm. So we're all in this together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so most channelers are channelers from a young age. There are a few that come on as adults, but most are children born this way. And most channelers already have a name for their 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 name for this collective energy. So just because we all call them something else is because we chose names a long time ago when we were small,
Mm-hmm.
and probably because of either our own religious background or our own belief system, and those names just felt right to us. And so that's how I came up with the name Masters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm not even sure at that time, I was too young to really understand what that meant, probably, because I was probably 3 or 4. So at that point, it was just something a definition I used so that when my grandfather or my parents knew what I was talking about, who I was talking about, where I was talking about.
Um, so I ask because from the perspective of when I learn something new, I like to try to fit it into what I already know and weave it in like, okay, here's another piece of the puzzle, like theta healing, right? So with that, so when I learned theta healing and she describes these different dimensions, I'm like, okay, so then where does all this other information that I now know fit into what she's teaching? And now what you're teaching, I'm trying to like just make a whole a whole mapping of like, yeah.
So dimensions can get really technical, especially from a quantum standpoint. They can become really technical. Um, and that's why I say the divine realm, because the
Hmm.
divinity realm is the highest realm.
Okay.
And there are people who believe that we go up, that dimensions are forever and ever, and multiple multiples. And there are people who believe that dimensions only go up to 20, and some believe they only go up to 11. And I do believe that is partly your belief system,
Yeah.
and partly we don't know, you know. So
Right.
I like to think of dimensions as being infinite and universal throughout the universe.
Yeah.
But the one highest realm, no matter where it is in the dimensional line, is the divine realm.
Okay.
And so when I'm talking about the divine realm, that's where almost all channelers go to.
Right.
And mediums, their work is sometimes a lot more involved, because they deal with everybody that has been on earth. So whether it's angels, or whether it's your ancestors, or whether it's you in a past life, or um, someone who, a loved one you just lost, the medium is the person that connects to those energies. And that's not to say that channelers can't, but for me personally, the divine realm is enough.
Hmm.
And so I have 2 people that I have on the back of my business card, if people need to speak to Uncle Joe. And Uncle Joe was bald and had a big blue mole right here, and spoke with an English accent. I'm going to give you to my friends Jane or Sally, because they're the ones that talk to. They do that very easily, very well, and very accurately. And I see people as their soul,
Hmm.
and I can tune in, but I have them. So why would I even want to put that much energy into it? I will. If you're sitting across from me, I will. I don't mind. It's not that. It's just they do such a beautiful job at it.
Yeah.
And so my information is the universe speaking to us. And sometimes Uncle Joe will pop in, but that's not where I'm getting my information from. My information is coming from beyond that space.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I concur. But yeah, I agree. So, okay, so I have a couple of questions and a couple of like bullet points here. for today. And I'm actually, I don't know why I'm thinking this is going to be like a two-part episode. I feel like we're going to go jump right into the fourth chapter really quick somehow. But anyway, so my first question or comment, what is something that you and I spoke about a month ago in a meeting about this concept of if a tree falls and nobody's there to hear it, does it make a sound? And I want to expand on that because when I went through my 2020 experience, I felt myself like, I'm like, okay, if this is a test, am I supposed to pay attention to all of this negativity or pull back and not be impacted by it? And I had a really hard time, like, what's the right thing to do here? Like, this stuff is coming up to the surface. Do I expose myself to all this negativity for the sake of it transmuting and moving it out? Or do I pretend like it's not happening and try to live in a bubble? And that is, and that's the more effective way of handling it. Like, what's the right thing to do or the effective way to handle that? And I was really torn with, do I really give a shit? When you see people who are on, looking at every goddamn piece of negativity on the news, and I'm like, get away from me, because why would you focus on that? Why would you focus on that? So if you can expand on that, I think that would be really lovely. And
So if I'm not answering this the way you want me to, stop me and let me answer it your way. And then, if, like you said,
okay.
if this ends up being part two of a question, then we can do it in two parts. Okay, that's all I'm saying. So yes, first of all, it's physics. When something falls somewhere, someone is hearing it. So maybe the person's not in the woods to hear it, but the deer is in the woods, or the skunk is in the woods, and that sound is its way of telling its friends and family in the woods, its woodland friends, that I'm coming down. And so the deer knows to run away and not get crushed, or the bear knows to run away. But they also know, the birds know to fly out of the nest. So yes, the answer to that question is yes. Just because we're not there to hear it doesn't mean it does not exist.
Right.
And I answered that way. Go ahead.
Well, okay, so let's just play. I'm just playing like
Devil's advocate.
Yeah, so hypothetically, there are no animals that have an auditory mechanism to capture the sound. There's no insects, but the tree falls.
It will still make a sound because it makes a vibration.
Right.
And everything on the planet, even this card that I'm holding in my hand,
yeah,
has a frequency and a vibration.
Yeah.
Because humans are not in tune to that, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Right.
And I think that's what the real question now, maybe not in 3D, but in fourth dimension, I think that really is the real question that your question poses is, well, if we don't hear it, then is it real?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's real for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So like you, I don't listen to the news. I haven't for eons.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, because my settings aren't any different than anyone else's, but the news and negative energy doesn't even make it to my Facebook feed. Okay. Other people say, oh my gosh, did you see that? And I'm like, no, I didn't get that. I don't get negative stuff like that 98, 99% of my life.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff doesn't come in.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean nothing negative ever happens to me, but it's not that external stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So when people tell me, that's how I know what's going on. And the interesting thing about that is I always know what's going on. I always know. I may not know that it's specifically in LA where there is unrest, but I know there is huge unrest in that area of the world.
Yeah.
And I don't have to be psychic for that. I can feel that, but that comes with practice of being quiet, being still, listening, meditating daily, being at peace with myself daily, living in gratitude. And it doesn't have to be for a reason. Simply being grateful. Those frequencies, those vibrations don't come into my world, but I know when they're out there.
So this brings me to another hypothetical, like a theoretical question. If the entire planet were to simultaneously not watch the news, so to speak, and focus on, like, if we were all in a meditative state and focused on our own well-being simultaneously, wouldn't all of that just disintegrate or dissolve?
Most of it would dissolve. Yes. It would. So we would have it. It's why we are trying to sow seeds and give information and opportunity for people to understand what this new energy, this new age is all about, because the more we can raise our frequencies, the less that three-dimensional energy will live. Okay. So when we talk about the tree falling, that's nature, and that's a different metaphor. When we're talking a whole different thing, because it will make noise. When we're using it as a metaphor, and we bring it into where we are now, then it becomes that thing that, yes, it says, okay, if I don't pay attention to it, it doesn't exist. For right now, it still does. But the more people that don't pay attention, so we call this feeding. And since we're on it, we might as well go ahead and discuss this.
Yeah.
So if I do not feed the energy that does not resonate with me, okay, the three-dimensional word would be that is bad, or that I don't like, or whatever. But the truth is, it doesn't resonate in your frequency, and nothing's bad. It just doesn't resonate. It resonates at a very low frequency. And so the higher my frequency, the less affected I am by, even if I hear about what's going on, I don't have the emotional tie to it that others have.
Right.
And so I tell my clients all the time, they come in and they complain about either side of a political issue, or either side of a religious issue, or any other topic. And I said, so why are you feeding it? And it takes time. It's not hard. It's not difficult. We have to untrain ourselves. We are so trained to be fixers. I need to fix this. I need to, this needs to, this can't happen. These, and they use that energy. People stuck in or mired in that 3D energy, they use the things they know are going to get us in our heart space. And so they know that if they put a photo of a child or whatever they're doing, that it will tug on our heartstrings, and it'll enter our heart space, and we will react.
Yeah.
Back in early 2000s, the universe began teaching us how to determine when we were in Pisces and when we were going to be in Aquarius, so that we could kind of try practicing. And it's a very simple formula. If I react to something, I'm in Pisces.
Yeah.
If I take a breath and I reply or I respond, and that reply or response is no or doing nothing,
Mm-hmm.
That is still a reply or a response.
Mm.
I'm not feeding the energy of the 3D. So the topic doesn't matter. It's why we no longer look at the story, because a story is simply, my story is simply the words I choose to describe my emotions at any given moment for any given experience I think I am having.
Yeah.
And we know this is true because they've done so many studies on people seeing the same thing, and um, if you have 7 people, you have 7 different stories. Even if they show it to you again and on a video and they point out what happened, they still don't see what the person pointing it out. Everybody, even the person pointing to the video, has a different perception by what our past is, by what our belief systems are. So that doesn't make one wrong and one right. It simply means that's where we come from. So once we learn to take the story out of things and see things as they are on a frequency basis. So when I see these things, I don't react, because if I react, I'm feeding their energy.
Yeah.
And one of the things that people that are in the 4th dimension are beginning to understand is we're beginning to see that a 4th dimensional person still has, because we haven't evolved far enough not to. Okay, I don't care how hard we work, we haven't evolved as a species far enough not to have some 3-dimensional energy still inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And when a 3-dimensional person who feels their whole world crumbling because 3-dimensional energy is disappearing rapidly,
Mm-hmm.
and they do what we call a bump up against that 4th dimensional person, that 3-dimensional energy in that 4th dimensional person is heightened because it's living in a 4th dimensional space for right now.
Okay.
And so it's heightened because that's the only way it can be in there. So when they bump up, it's almost like a vampire kind of thing. They kind of take that 3-dimensional energy. They can't take the 4th. And we don't even know it's happening. We don't use that 3-dimensional energy. So we aren't even aware, but they do. And so they bump up, they take it, and now they're enhanced. So instead of giving them the opportunity to move into the 4th dimension and begin living in an Aquarian life, what we've done is we have refueled that 3-dimensional source.
Okay.
So that's not to say that we should not interact with these people. No, that's not, because they're not doing anything wrong. They haven't been given the opportunity, or they haven't been able to see what the people in the 4th dimension see. It isn't a wrong or a right or them versus us.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we have to kind of explain it that way, because otherwise those are the only words we have right now. We're getting new words, but those are the only words we have. So if we do not feed what we do not want, what we do not want cannot grow.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's simply and profoundly put. And it makes me, like, so, those that a lot of people know that have an obsession with Carolyn Mace's teaching and her, and when we were going through 2020 and I was watching one of her workshops, she was talking about how she was like almost scolding the audience, saying it's important to know what's going on in the world. And I'm like, well, if it's bad, I'm not going to. Like, again, I was like stuck in this conflicted place. Like, I'm not, you should know what's going on in other countries and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I don't want to know what's going on in other countries. I don't want to hear about any wars and deaths and murder. I just can't go there. So, yeah.
The people that will tell you or me or anyone watching that we're putting our head in the sand, no, In 3D, we would be putting our head in the sand. Those ways of thinking are 3D energies.
Yeah.
And we are going into a 4th-dimensional energy where the energy of those belief systems and that way of living no longer resonates.
Yeah.
And so it's not about being punished. It's not about having to give things up. It's not about any of that. Do we need, are we asked, requested to give things up as we shift into this new energy? Yes, we are. And that can be another subject because that's a really long one. But we are being asked to walk away from people, places, or things until we become comfortable in that 4th dimension. And what happens is the things that are still important to us never really went away. And the things that no longer serve us, we don't even realize we don't do anymore.
Yeah.
So as this happens and more people who say, well, yeah, but what about prisons and what about jails? And well, if you're not in that 3rd-dimensional space, those thoughts do not enter your head. That is a 3D energy. It is not an energy that can live in a 4th-dimensional space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the universe will take care of that. I don't have to go out here and preach to people. I don't have to go out here and arrest everybody or anything else. And things happen to me too, but not my understanding of them. And yes, I'm human. I have my 3D part of me that goes, but I don't stay there.
Yeah.
That's what the 4th dimension is about. It's learning how not to stay there. Once we learn how to do that, going into the 5th dimension will be very easy. And in the 5th dimension, those moments don't even exist.
Mm-hmm.
But like we said before, it's an evolution, not a marathon. So we have to do these things in steps. And we like to believe as human beings that we are capable of switching on a light switch and just changing. And that is not a true reality. Not in that 3D space. That 3D reality of being able to just shift does not exist. And that's science. That's not me being woo-woo. That's just science.
Yeah.
So the universe, knowing that, knows that we have to evolve into this new way of living. And it is not the first time we've done this, and it will not be the last time we've done this.
You mean like this isn't the first go around? Like this transition from 3 to 4, we've done this in the past.
We have done this in the past. And at one point in the 300s, people decided that they wanted to have control. They wanted to feel empowerment. They wanted to have all of those experiences. And the universe said, okay. And so we went from, we have more chakras than this, but we went from a 24 chakra system, dropped down to a 12. We weren't real happy with that either. So we dropped down to 7 because 7 is what we need to survive on Earth with. Okay. So that was as low as they could go and have us still survive in the way Earth beings survive on this planet, in bodies and with blood and hearts and livers and etc. So that's why we have the 7 chakra system. We are already evolving back into a 12 chakra system. Mm-hmm. Well, you can help activate it, but as you go along, the higher your frequency, the more your chakras will come online. There are only 2 that won't come online until we learn to unconditionally do those 8 magic words that we talked about before. And we have to learn how to unconditionally live those words.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last two will come online, and you will be a 12 chakra individual. And those things that keep getting our attention in that three-dimensional world will not even get your attention unless someone that you care about is in that space, and then it gets your attention because you want to help soothe them from that space that they're in.
Right, right. My goodness. So I want to expand on the word because you're getting back to the news for a split second. Because
Okay.
just for those who are watching this who may still be watching the news, so when it dawned on me you were saying like because we inherit I think you said like as humans we want to fix things, and my understanding is that that's a masculine energy.
Yes, it is.
So is that a planned or deliberate, like watching the news and is that like almost planned and deliberate way of like exploiting the masculine?
Yes.
Okay.
And and if I'm feeling my world crumbling, my own world, take the news out for a minute, and my own world, if I feel my 3D-ism leaving and I don't know why, so that creates, I don't understand why. If I don't know why, then I have no clue of why I feel this way. And so it sends us into that place of fear.
Yeah.
And so now with our technology the way it is, and our media of all kinds the way it is, keeping people in fear feeds my 3D energy. Because if I'm in fear, I want everybody else. It's that misery loves company, three-dimensional way of thinking.
Right.
And so, yes, if I can get you to watch that, then guess what? Maybe you'll be in fear with me and I won't be alone. So if I feel this within me crumbling, I'm going to start looking external. I'm going to look to the other things that create fear. And then I'm going to embrace those because that's feeding my 3D-ism.
Okay.
If I'm not in that space, then it doesn't resonate with me.
Right.
So there's no reason I don't even think about what's on the news. There's enough weather channel, weather kind of apps out there that I can find out what's happening with the weather if I don't know from the animals around me.
Yeah.
Going back to 4D is about being observant and knowing nature, because you understand you're part of nature, not in control of nature. And so once you understand that you are a part of this nature, you are one with this nature, you notice when the dragonflies or the honeybees or the birds or the leaves on the trees or whatever the symbols of whether it's going to snow or rain or have a hurricane or you feel the earth shake if it's going to be an earthquake or a volcanic eruption. Indigenous peoples all over the world have known how to do this since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
We have too much external noise that we listen to.
Right.
So once we learn to go back to those shamanic roots and go back to living an earth life,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not to say, okay, everybody has to get rid of their houses and go live in tents. We can live wherever we live and still be that person.
Mm-hmm.
As you go further to becoming that person, you need less and less, but it still doesn't mean that if you really like your comfy bed and you really want to live in that 15-room house because you have a lot of family and they come down and visit and it's nice for everybody to have room, you can be as fourth dimension and fifth dimension as you want to be and still live in that space.
Mm-hmm.
What needs to change about that is why you have that 15-bedroom house.
The why.
It's the why. It has nothing to do with the what or the how much or the where.
Mm.
It has to do with the why.
Mm. So I'm like, oh my God, so many questions. So what would be a three-dimensional motive that doesn't fly in 4 and 5? Like when you say why, what, obviously fear, right? Is it just that simple?
Just that simple. We have basically two energies, and all the other energies, aka emotions that we have, are under the umbrella, so to speak, of these two:
Mhm.
love and fear.
Yeah.
And everything else branches off of those two. So if I have, okay, I will even tell on myself. I say even like I never do this. I do this all the time. Sometimes I tell stories and make them about me because they're private stories, and so it's just easier for me to say it happened to me. But most of the time it's about me because I've lived one of those kind of full lives. So I knew when I was 3, I was supposed to live exactly where I live now. And as I grew up, every time we had to leave the beach, I would tie myself to the rail or to the stairs or something because I wasn't going to leave, et cetera, et cetera. And then I got older and realized that the people that I was friends with or people I knew didn't understand what this area and this beach was all about. Okay, so I knew there was something different. It wasn't like going to Myrtle Beach, but there's nothing wrong with going to Myrtle Beach. I'm not saying that, but it was different. The energy was just different. Mm-hmm. And so when I first moved here permanently, my daughter went to college and in the area, and they had this T-shirt made up, and it said on the back, it said, "My life is your vacation." And I wore that shirt till it literally, in fact, I still have it, and it has burn holes from when I was doing a crystal ball reading, and I was in the sun. I was in the shade, and the sun had come around, and I wasn't paying attention, and the crystal ball caught my shirt on fire. But I still have the shirt. I just don't wear it very often because it's falling apart. But I would wear that every time I went back to where we were from. I would wear that shirt, and I knew it was a really nasty thing to do, but I did it, and I'm not sure why, and I don't think you have to know why, other than there were certain people there that I would see, and I wanted them to know that I'm so sorry, but I got here first. So that is a very 3D. Now I wear it, and I wear it because I love the shirt. I love the logo of the school on the front. It, because it's so old, it feels good. It's comfy. I can wear it and on a cool day or a slightly warm day and be comfortable either way. And so it's just a piece of clothing that I enjoy wearing. And it has nothing to do with what's on the back. In fact, you can barely even see the logo on the back anymore. So it has nothing to do with that. But in the beginning, and the reason I bought this shirt to begin with was because of the logo on the back of the shirt. Now, I will defend myself slightly and say that was before 2012. So it was in the very early 2000s. So we were all still in that very 3-dimensional, 4th-dimensional, didn't exist place, but still I did it.
You're forgiving, Chris.
I repented. I have told my deep, dark secret sin.
So let me see. Where are we going? I had Okay, because so I'm reluctant to ask another question only because I feel like it's gonna be like another chapter, and I don't know where you're at with that. So I'll just present it and you tell me.
Okay.
Um, I'm curious for, for the specification, like to get into the details of this carbon to crystalline formation, this change, like what that actually means. My understanding when I think of carbon, I think about when I went to organic chemistry class, and that's the definition of organic chemistry is anything that contains carbon. So I'm like, okay, so we're not going to have organic bodies anymore. I don't know. And then my second question to that is, does it coincide with what I've heard about the core of the earth changing? Are they related? And that's my question.
You're right. This is probably two chapters.
Too big. Should I pause?
We will do very short answers
Okay,
that we know aren't going to answer everything,
right. And then,
but at least answer enough to answer the question.
yes, yes.
So going from carbon to crystalline is about your DNA changing. And that's happened with humanity more than once. Okay. So you can go when we really when we really think about it, we go way back to the very early man of walking humped over to standing erect, that kind of thing. And so those are physical things that we know happened. And then we can go back to there was a time and place if you took the appendix or gallbladder out, humans couldn't live. Now people can live quite well without an appendix and even a gallbladder. But an appendix, you almost go back to exactly the same kind of lifestyle you had before you had it taken out. Mm-hmm. That had to happen with a DNA, RNA evolution. Okay. So when you bring that in, those things had to evolve. So at what point, I've never asked, never studied, so I'm not even going to hazard a guess as far as a year or a time or that type of thing. But that is another proven way of knowing that we have already been through many of these changes. Mm-hmm. A carbon base, to put it very simply and really overly simply, carbon base can't resonate in a fourth, fifth, sixth dimensional space for any length of time.
Okay.
A crystalline base, once pivot is gone, once this pivot point, that's what pivot was created for, was to give us a chance to live in both worlds and kind of do this a little smoother than it would be if we didn't have that. A crystalline base has a high frequency resonance. And so that's why we are shifting from one to the other. But if you think about it, they're both from the earth. So will there be changes in the body? Well, yeah, because we just talked about two of them. So something will change. One of my friends, her eyes, she's been shifting, and her eye color has changed 3 or 4 times just since she's been shifting. Mm-hmm. But as you shift, you also, as you get rid of these things, they become toxins of sorts in your body. So you may have a rash, you may have a boil, you may have multiple rashes, multiple boils. You may have never suffered from a headache and now you're getting headaches all the time. There's a myriad of medical things that can pop up. If your doctor says, we have no idea what's wrong with you, 99.9% of that means you're shifting. And even the medical journals talk about. I'm not going to say mainstream medicine, but they understand that this is going on.
Yeah.
And so it's not simply something I created. This is a fact that our DNA, our molecules, our cellular structure, everything is shifting into that higher frequency, and that's what's going to cause us to be a crystalline. When we do talk about it, hopefully we can let people know if they have a nickel with them. We will do I'll demonstrate the nickel and how if you keep a nickel with you, you will know if you're in Pisces, Aquarius, or if you're in that middle space.
Oh boy.
And so, yeah, that's kind of fun. And it's really easy to be able to see it because you can hold, we love tangible, and you can hold the nickel in your hand and you can see when it's this or when it's this or when it's this. So that will help us when we get to that chapter.
Okay, cool.
Did that answer it enough for you though, that for right now?
For today, because I know we're just talking about it. So I think this is a good place to pause because otherwise it's going to be too much. How do you feel? Is there anything that, like, is this a good place to pause, or do you want to dive into something else?
No. The only thing that I would like to say at the end of this is I really hope that my dream for these chapters, for this book, is not for everybody to believe wholeheartedly everything. If you do, I think that would be great because, that's awesome. But it's not about that. I want people to understand they don't need to be afraid that every single thing that is happening in this world, everything, from our own personal life to all the external stuff, is by design. The Mayan calendar talked about this. There are written documents about when this time comes to be, and we are the bee now. Yeah. And so this is not anything that is made up. It's not anything that one person is in charge of. This is not a savior evolution. And it is a collective consciousness. It is about shifting, not marching or driving. It's ebb and flow. And the things that are happening that are unpleasant, that are sad, that do pull at the heartstrings, that we don't want to watch or know about, or the things that people can't get enough of, but they feel themselves getting sicker and sicker, or more depressed and more depressed every day, or more fearful. All the things that are happening for a reason. And it's not anyone's to change. The things that are happening, the things that are corrupt, the things that are dirty, the things that are not for our highest good will crumble, and they need to. It doesn't, it's not wiping them off the face of the earth. It's having it crumble. If you have a Jenga board, it's a great way to explain it, because we just keep taking things off the top, is exactly what we did in 3D. Everything we did in 3D, nothing stuck. And I don't care what side of the fence anybody's on. Roe versus Wade is the best example of that because it lasted the longest. But before this energy came into being a reality, it was reversed. So everything we did and that is being done in that 3D energy is a Band-Aid. Yeah. Whether it's an eruption or whether it's a growth, it's still a Band-Aid. Things will not change or shift until we shift everything into this fourth dimension, which is where things get better. Whatever your better is. They become softer, lighter. There's compassion comes back into our world. All of those things that we miss, the good old days that weren't really the good old days, but those feelings did exist in people. Yeah. And so if some of those compassion, helping each other, being friendly, not laying on the horn when people are turning to get into their driveway or whatever's going on, if we bring that to the wall of the fourth dimension, when we cross in, that stuff just goes away. And if we don't feed it again, it disappears. And so all of these things you need to disappear so that we can clean them up, so that we can rejuvenate them. It is called realign, recalibrate, rejuvenate. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what this energy will do. It takes that void, and we'll talk about that with the nickel. It takes that and it gets in there and it realigns the person, place, or thing. It recalibrates the frequency and the new understanding of a person, place, or thing. And then that person, place, or thing becomes rejuvenated. Mm-hmm. And so those 3D aspects of their life have simply gone away. And that's when they become crystalline, because the carbon cannot sustain that life. So the universe has every contingency is taken care of. It's a blueprint. Yeah. You know, we said earlier that we're finding out that there's so much more. This could, you know, people could be online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for the next 200 years and not explain everything that is happening, because it's happening at such a rapid pace. Yeah. 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 So that's all. I simply want people not to be afraid or as afraid, and to know that things that are changing everything is changing for a better way of life for humanity. And it's not, no one's being punished. No one is being made to do anything. It's all about coming to this realization on your own. Mm-hmm. And it's about understanding that whatever is happening for your highest and best good. And that once all of this cleaning up is finished, that part of life will no longer exist. And we will be in this more peaceful, not utopia, but we will be in a more peaceful and harmonious space. And the balance of finances everything will be in a balance. There will be ups and downs, yin and yangs, positive and negatives. It's not that one is eradicating the other. Again, if it crumbles, it's not because it's eradicated. It is to be rebuilt. Yeah. So that life is in balance. And that's pretty much what I wish everyone could feel. Yeah, that it's okay. Yeah, well, the changes is that it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. Well said. That's a good ending for chapter 3. What do you think? Yay, I'm excited. I am so happy to be here with you one-on-one, and to be here with all of you that are watching. It's very humbling and very honoring, and I thank you very much. Thank you. So see you next time. Until next time, we'll see what chapter 4 brings. Yeah.